This video is going to cover 4 things that you should know if you have an empty property and you want to get a renter into it fast. And if you are wondering what the word fast here means, it means 24 days. So on average, your property lists and within a little past 3 weeks, so 24 days instead of 21, you have someone starting to pay you on that 24th day. But first, some assumptions I have about you since you are watching this video. So you probably fall under one of 3 buckets. So the first bucket is going to be accidental landlords. You may be an accidental landlord because you tried to sell your property, you have a lot of equity in your property, but you are not getting the kind of offers on the property that are interesting to you to take. So now you're thinking, well, maybe it makes more sense to rent. The second group would be people that inherit a property for whatever reason. And then the third group would be people that are looking to leave the United States, but they are concerned about what they're going to do with their property. They have a mortgage on it or they have a lot of furniture on it. The second bucket are people that have a listing that is live, but it's not doing that well. And often a few tweaks will get them right. And then the third and final bucket that I assume may be watching this video are people that have a rental property. They know they need to start renting it, but they are reluctant to do so for whatever reason. And they are probably seeking out a lot of education to make sure that the rental goes well. And that 24-day stat, it is specific to rentals that are renting for 30 days or more. Now, it might be for a year, it might be for 6 months, but it's more than 30 days. So that can be a furnished rental that is renting for 30 days or more, or it can be an unfurnished rental for 30 days or more. That number 24 comes from a blend of both. But I am speaking to people that are not looking to do short-term or vacation rentals. And the reason why I'm speaking to you is because that's where my numbers are coming from, but also because I am a big advocate for self-property management. I've been doing it with my husband since 2014 on all of our properties. When I was a real estate agent to investors, I recommended that they did their own self-property management to save themselves money. And then also we do ours from 1,400 miles away. So I manage my own properties from Mexico, and I also coach other people on how to rent their properties. So we discuss a strategy and execute successfully, even though I've never been to the property or seen it. And I'm Erin Spradlin, and the name of this channel is The Lazy Landlord. And the reason why I tell people to lean into being lazy landlords is not to be a slumlord. I think slumlords actually talk to their tenants all the time, but I think lazy landlords come out of good systems, good process, pulling patterns that you see from past rentals and then making and modifying your rental or your check-in docs so that expectations are set and that with every rental it gets easier and easier. So I think lazy landlording is good landlording, and good landlording comes from good systems plus good people. So for that reason, I think people should be lazy landlords, but they should be good landlords. So that 24-day number, where does it come from and is it relevant to you? I think it is relevant to you because that 24 number comes from the last 7 rentals that I have sourced for others. And the reason why I think the geography matters here, and also mentioning that it's a combination of both furnished and unfurnished, is that we have a pattern suggesting that these tips will work regardless of your geographic location and or whether you're furnished or not. And if you feel like you learned anything in this video, please like it. Okay, so let's get to tip number 1. And tip number 1 should help guide your decisions in the rental space. You set up the video and start with knowing your day rate and knowing your month rate, because it can help inform a lot of your decisions along the way. And it can also bring you clarity as far as what matters. Because sometimes in real estate and in rental properties, we have this thought of like, I should get this, or this is the price, or no, I would never give a 5% discount because I just listed. But when you know your day rate, it helps put the calendar in perspective, and all of a sudden giving someone a discount makes more sense than waiting for 2 weeks for the tenant that's going to pay the amount that we have assigned the property being worth. And that amount might be your mortgage, but that is not always what the rental market wants to pay. So the average cost of a mortgage in the United States right now is $2,715. That's a monthly mortgage. And if you divide that by 30 days, the average day rate is $90. So every time a potential renter comes in and they're asking for a discount, or maybe they're not starting for 2 weeks, everything should be put in the context of a $90 per day context. Like if someone comes in and they're asking for a 5% discount, 5% of $2,715 is $135. And if you divide $135 By 90, you get about 1.5 days. So do you have confidence that you will find a renter at $2,715 in 1.5 days? Because if you don't, you should let the renter in that's asking for a 5% discount. But you may push back and say, but Erin, they want a 5% discount for 6 months, and the bill on that is closer to $800. Is it worth it then? Well, again, you have to divide that 810 by 90, and that comes out to 9 days. In which case you have to ask yourself, do I have confidence that I will find the person that is willing to pay $2,715 or whatever it is to cover your mortgage in the next 9 days? Because if you don't have confidence that you're going to find that person, then it makes sense to take the person that wants the 5% discount now. And I will revisit this topic at the end of this video. And that's also why when I make videos, I talk about, I will make a video that helps you put your best foot forward, but I'm not going to promise a certain level of cash flow, because that cash flow is going to be dependent on when you got the mortgage, the style of your property, the market that your property is in. And there's also some scary information that I'm about to share. Before I share it, I just want to say, don't worry, you are just want to caveat that before I talk about the scary things, because there are lots of things you can do to get renters in and to help support your financial goals, and despite the stats that I'm about to share. So the first stat is the rental rates have been going down nationwide in the United States since August of 2022. So renters are just paying less for rentals. So that's scary stat one. Scary stat two is back to those accidental landlords. There's a flood of accidental landlords or landlords in the market because people aren't getting what they wanted on the sale of the property. And so they're transitioning into a renting position with the hope that there will be more competition and more demand in the future for the housing market or for when you are selling a property. This second tip is so basic and so obvious that when I say it, you're gonna groan and be like, oh God, of course. But you would be surprised by the amount of people that resist doing this, or they hire someone and then it gets done wrong. So not only will I tell you what this magical thing is, but I'm also gonna give you a few tips to set you up for success so that you don't have to pay for it twice, and also so that it doesn't cost you because it's executed incorrectly. And for those of you that have been resistant to doing this, I get it. I made like my first 50 YouTube videos without a microphone, even though everyone and their mother was like, do not start recording videos until you have a microphone. And finally, someone called me out in the comments and said, you give the advice that I'm about to give, but you continue to record without a microphone. And I was like, that guy is right. So yes, you need professional photos. Professional photos will pay for themselves, but then you also need to do a little bit of coaching or monitoring of the professional photos that are being taken, because like any trade, not all professional photographers are equal. So first things first, whether it's the external space or the internal space, you want photos that capture a lot. And what I mean by a lot is, if it's an external photo, you want to make sure the whole house is shown in the photo. No, like the sides aren't cut off, the roof isn't cut off. You can see the sky and you can see the yard, and the whole property is shown in it. So no sides are cut off. And this is also true for interior photos. If someone is shooting the inside of the property, you need to be able to see the ceiling, the floor, and no parts of the bed or the closet or the walls or the windows should be cut off. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is that if the curtains or blinds are closed, they need to be opened up and all the lights need to be turned on. It helps with the photography and it just presents better. And so both of those tips work for unfurnished or furnished rentals. This last tip is specific to furnished rentals, and it's about staging. So in the past, I would get professional photos from very diligent, very responsible landlords. And when the photo came through, it would be hard for me to relate to the scene that had been set. People would send me photos of their dining room table, and the dining room table would be made up for like 6 people. And it would be really nice, like glassware, matching dishes. As photos come through, it's a disconnect for me because I associate like a formal dining table with holidays or with my grandparents, when the reality is probably a lot more people are going to use the dining table to do work. A stronger photo for the dining table is a laptop open and a mug of coffee, because that is how most people are going to use the dining table. Leaning toward and setting up every photo the way that it's most likely for a person to use that space is smart, because it makes it easier for your potential renter and future tenant to put themselves in that space. Okay, for tip number 3, I'm going to talk about where you should list your rentals, and I'll talk about the difference between if you are listing a furnished property, where you should list that rental, versus if you are listing an unfurnished property, where you should list that rental. And at the beginning of my career, I worked with a lot of people that were renting furnished long-term. And in the furnished long-term space, there's a lot of discussion around going one-to-one with travel nursing companies or insurance companies. And I have never found that strategy to be very effective. I get a lot of interest from travel nursing companies and insurance companies, but it's not because I try to cultivate a one-to-one relationship with them. And the reason why I don't like doing that is because you have to find an individual that will talk to you. That individual has to have an incoming tenant to your area, and then your property has to be the best fit for them. And that means that your location has to be right, your bed bath configuration has to be right. So it is much smarter, in my opinion, and it is a better use of your time to go to the biggest platforms for your rental property type and list there. And the reason why this makes sense is because those insurance agents, those travel nurses, or whatever your tenant's circumstances, their lease is up and they need a new lease, or they're getting divorced, or they're in the middle of a renovation. That's becoming more and more popular, where people need a furnished rental because they're in the middle of a renovation, or they've moved to the city, right? Most of them are not working one-to-one with someone. They are looking at the big platforms, or the person that's working on behalf of them are looking at the big platforms. And again, there's a very good parallel here with video. When you started to research how you should rent out your property, you probably looked like 1 to 3 places, like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, maybe Facebook, to find this information. But there are lots of other niche video platform sites that you've never heard of and that no one's at. And that's same for rental platforms as well. There are niche rental platforms and there are one-to-one relationships that you could cultivate, but there's just not a lot of people there. So for that reason, you want to be on the bigger platforms and you want to be strong on those bigger platforms. So in the rental space, it's going to be Zillow, because Zillow has a furnished rental side of it. It's going to be Airbnb, because Airbnb, you can set the rentals for 30 days or more. And if you are in the furnished space, meaning you have a furnished rental for 30 days or more, it is really smart to be on Airbnb. And then finally, Furnish Finder. And Furnish Finder is also a rental platform that has existed for a while and has always had a client base of hosts that are renting for 30 days or more and tenants that are looking for properties that are furnished for 30 days or more. Now, if you have a rental property that is not furnished, you want to be listed on Realtor.com, Avail, and Zillow. The reason for that, again, being that you are going to have broader reach, and those platforms are the platforms that have really strong name recognition. So Zillow, Furnish Finder, and Airbnb for the furnished rental space, and Zillow, Avail, and Realtor.com for the unfurnished rental space. Those are the ones that have a lot of brand recognition, name recognition, and so you're not going to have to do a lot other than post on those platforms, and renters will seek out those platforms versus you having to find the renter. Whenever you are looking to find the renter, that's not a good strategy. You should just be in the places where the renters are looking if they're trying to find you. Okay, a little light change there because it's getting dark outside. So the final thing we're going to talk about is how to price your rental. The big mistake that most people make when they are pricing their rental is that they start it in a backwards manner. And what that means is that they start with what their costs are. And that can be the mortgage, the utilities, the yard care, etc. And then whatever their costs are, they say, I want to do a little bit better than that, or I want to break even. And they list the price as being that. But fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you are and when you bought, the market doesn't care about your costs. The market will dictate how much your rental should be. And you know you're overpriced if your property has sat for 14 days and it has no interest. And you know you are underpriced if you have put your property up and it's been live for 48 hours and you already have 3 hits. That means that you're probably on the lower end for your property type and your region. It is fairly easy to find the rental numbers for an unfurnished rental. You can look at Zillow or you can look at rentometer.com. Both are free to you and both will give you good estimates around what your long-term unfurnished rental price should be. If you have a furnished rental and it's 30 days or more, that's a harder number to get at. And the reason why that's a harder number to get at is because Zillow and Rentometer aren't basing their numbers off of that. We have data out of Airbnb and AirDNA, but that data is typically set off of short-term rentals, and then they usually just put some kind of discount off of what a short-term rental should be. And I have not found that to be a consistent number for what people actually get paid in the furnished rental 30+ day space. And even Furnish Finder, I don't find the numbers to be particularly useful. First off, a lot of the reporting is based off of like what a nurse's stipend would be. And just because a nurse makes a certain amount or has a certain budget for rentals doesn't mean they're going to spend that. Like, they're not going to pay more for market rentals just because they can. They're still going to pay what's reasonable for that product in the market. The other reason why I'm a little bit hesitant around Furnish Finder's numbers is that I frequently get emails about, I've put it up, but everyone's just asking for a discount, and I'm not getting anywhere close to the number that they're saying. So that's why I think the pricing in the midterm rental space is a little bit more complicated, and I can help with that, and I do speak to that, but it's a service that I provide and that people pay me for. Okay, so to recap this video, know your daily rate, get professional photos and coach them on the professional photos. Go on the big platforms. So Airbnb, Zillow, and Furnish Finder for furnished properties, Zillow, Avail, and Realtor.com for unfurnished properties. And then finally, base your rents off of what the market rental rate is and not what your costs are. And since I mentioned Zillow as a good platform for both unfurnished and furnished rentals, if you want to know how to use Zillow, I made a tutorial that's now 2 years old, but I just watched it and the platform hasn't changed that much. So if you want an intro on how to use Zillow and you want a walkthrough of someone setting up their property on Zillow, check out this video.